Hi everyone. So yesterday we started reading Zero Grandparents by Michelle Edwards. And when we left off, Calliope was upset because they were having Grandparents' Day at school and she doesn't have any grandparents to bring in. All of her grandparents are dead. So she's wondering who she can bring for Grandparents' Day, right? Calliope dumped all of her candy on the table. I don't have any grandparents to bring for Grandparents' Day. She took a big, loud bite of her apple. Chomp. It isn't fair that all of my grandparents are dead, said Calliope. I could come to Grandparents' Day, offered Mrs. James. But you're not my grandmother, Calliope told her. With all of this gray hair, who would know the difference? Her mother asked. I would, thought Calliope, and so would everybody else. No thanks, said Calliope. She passed her mother a lollipop. Lollipops were Mrs. James' favorites. If my grandma was alive, I'd share my Halloween candy with her too, Calliope thought. She put 4 baby-sized chocolate bars next to her apple. She counted her candy as she put it back in the bag. 97, 98, 99, 100. Calliope James had 100 pieces of Halloween candy and 0 grandmothers. And it's like a picture of a Hershey Kiss. And on the wrapper it says 0 grandmas. The next chapter is called Grandma Goldie. Today, the kids in room 201 were making paper crowns for Grandparents' Day. Yuck. Calliope had to work with Stinky Matthew Stern, the enemy of the 2nd grade. Double yuck. Time to clean up, announced Mrs. Fennessy. Then we will have a story before lunch. Calliope loved it when Mrs. Fennessy read aloud. She zipped over to the sink and washed the glue off her hands. She gathered scraps of paper from the floor and tossed them in the trash. When the room was clean, Mrs. Fennessy began. Today's story is about Grandma Goldie, a very special grandma, Mrs. Fennessy told the class. Who wants to hear a dumb story about a grandma? Calliope wanted to plug her ears. But Grandma Goldie was a special grandma. People said she could talk to animals. She was good and kind and wise. Her singing made plants and flowers grow big and tall. Her hugs could mend the most broken heart. Calliope wished she had a Grandma Goldie to hug. Why does everyone else have a grandma but me? Wasn't that a great story? Howie said at lunch. I just love that Grandma Goldie. Brr. Calliope shivered. Give a little shiver here. She shivered. She felt cold. Her fingers were icy. As I'm reading this, I don't think that Calliope is actually cold. I think it says that she felt cold and her fingers were icy because she was really upset that she doesn't have a grandmother to bring in. And that she was so upset that it made her heart kind of cold. Like she was feeling cold. She wasn't actually cold. When we read more complicated books, we need to look at the author's, the characters' actions and what they're thinking to figure out what they're feeling. The author might not say Calliope felt upset. Instead, it might say something like, she felt cold, her fingers were icy. What's wrong? Asked Paulia. Nothing, 0, zilch. Nothing, Calliope answered. Have a cookie, said Howie. One of Grandma Gardenia's peanut butter delights. Calliope took a cookie. If my grandma was alive, we would bake cookies together every day. Calliope threw her lunch away. I hate Grandparents' Day, she muttered. The next chapter is called Pictures. Tomorrow, the grandparents would come to school. Calliope would be alone without a grandparent. Even Stinky Stern had a grandma to bring. And it's showing him saying, ha ha, no grandparents. And in this picture over here, she's sitting at her desk looking sad. And around it is what she thinks the other kids would say about her. Poor Calliope, where are Calliope's grandparents? Doesn't Calliope have grandparents? Who loves Calliope? If I were Calliope and I didn't have one grandma to bring, I'd stay home. This is what she thinks the other kids are going to say about her. Calliope's mother and father had offered to come, but they were not her grandparents. Calliope sat on her bed and looked at pictures. Her father had given her a big album filled with them. There were pictures of her mother and father, her aunts and uncles, and all of her cousins. In the very back, there was an old picture of her grandma, Florrie Sophia Turnipseed. That's a funny name. Florrie Sophia Turnipseed. She had died before Calliope was born. Calliope took the picture of Florrie Sophia and put it by her mirror. She looked at Florrie Sophia's warm smile. Calliope had a space between her two front teeth, just like Florrie Sophia. She looked at Florrie Sophia's kind face. Calliope had freckles all over her face, just like Florrie Sophia. She looked at her hands. Calliope had big hands, just like Florrie Sophia. Calliope wished that Florrie Sophia weren't dead. She would have made a terrific grandma. If Florrie Sophia was alive, I could bring her to school and tell the class all about her, thought Calliope. I bet I know 100 things about my grandma. For one thing, Florrie Sophia had been a great knitter. Calliope had a pair of her mittens and a lacy shawl. So Calliope is realizing ways that her and her grandma Florrie Sophia are similar. I wonder what she's going to do with this. Calliope took out the lacy shawl that Florrie Sophia had made. She wrapped herself in the shawl. It felt just like a hug. Calliope stared at the mirror. She felt the air whistle in the space between her two front teeth. She made the freckles on her face dance. I'm thinking that she maybe smiled, or she wiggled her mouth or something to make the freckles move. She rubbed her hands together. Florrie Sophia was dead, but she was still Calliope's grandmother, now and forever. One grandmother for one kid. Florrie Sophia, Calliope whispered, my grandmother. So she's looking in the mirror, dressing like and pretending that she's Florrie Sophia. I wonder what Calliope is going to decide to do on Grandparents' Day. You're going to have to wait till tomorrow to find out.